So Bradley was very intimidating at first, and it was a very unexpected um, event in my life. Started out when I went to my regular psychologist who uh, gives me a prescription for my medication, my antidepressant. When I went to go see her, I thought it was just going to be a regular checkup and just like me talking to her one-on-one if my medication was working for me or not. At the time, I was at a very low point in my life, and I was doing a lot of self-mutilation, and I was very down, and, like, I was at a point where even if I had a plan to commit suicide, I didn't have the motivation to even find a way to do that, if that even makes sense. Anyways, when I went to go see my psychiatrist, she thought I was at such a low point that I had to be sent to a hospital to stabilize and figure myself out and get on a new medication that would be much more effective. Um, this is the point at which I broke down, and it was just a crying mess because it was just very unexpected, and I wouldn't have been so upset about the idea of going to a hospital if I had more time to prepare. She was telling me that I was going to be sent there right away without being able to go home first and get ready, and she said that I was probably going to be there for more than a week, so it was just very scary for me. What was worse is that my mom couldn't even, like, take me there herself. They had to strap me in to an ambulance and just drive me up there with two people that I didn't even know. And I honestly wasn't even really sure where I was because I had never been in this area, Providence. Actually, I've never really been to Providence that much in my life at all. So it was just like a very lonely place. Like, I feel like I'd been lonely so much in my life that, this was even worse. So it was like very stressful for me. On the way there, I was kind of just like so exhausted from crying and yelling that I just kind of fell asleep. And when I woke up, I thought I was at Bradley, but I actually wasn't at Bradley. I was at South County Hospital. I had to go to a regular hospital before I could. I had to go to a regular hospital before I could go to Bradley Mental Center. They had to just check my vital signs and see if I was in, like, relatively decent health before I was admitted to the Bradley Mental Center. It was a very long wait. I had to wait at the South County Hospital for about 6 or 7 hours. And after they were done with their tests, I was moved to Bradley Center through another ambulance, and that was like another long drive. When I got to Bradley, it was probably about 9 at night, and I had to talk to a doctor, and he had to, like, ask me questions and do a routine checkup, and, at this point I kind of calmed down, and, I was doing okay. But right after that, I had to go to my new room and go to sleep because the time to go to bed there was about 10 o'clock. So when they put me in my room, I just kind of broke down, and I was basically just crying all night. I barely slept that whole evening. Um, that was pretty much the worst night of my life, and it was just very uncomfortable. And the staff working in there, they heard me crying, so they walked in and I talked to somebody, and it didn't really make me feel that much better, so I was pretty much awake that whole night. Well, the next day I started off with, you know, introducing myself to like some of the other patients, and I ate breakfast, and it was very awkward. Uh, I had such like this social phobia, and I was at such like a weird place. Like, I don't know, it was just very difficult for me. To make a long story short, every day I was there, um, I was starting the new medication, and I had to go into like, we did groups every so often where everybody in the hospital would just like all the other kids would just come together into a group and just talk about how we felt and what our problems in the real world were, and it was just like a big support system. We did like some fun activities, like different kinds of games, and I got along with all the other kids there, and I didn't really feel alone. But the biggest obstacle for me was that, I had to learn that like things weren't going to be as easy in the real world like after I got out of the hospital as they were in the hospital, because in the hospital, you know, I felt safe. I felt like nothing could really touch me there. Um it wasn't I was trying not to have my hopes up too much and have any unrealistic expectations for when I go home. But it was hard, because being in a place like that kind of got my hopes up. Well, I talked to some pretty good people there. Like there were like girls and boys with like similar issues. Although I was surprised because I was the oldest patient there. Um, but everybody seemed pretty relatable. Um, it was just 10 days of a lot of crying and um, self like evaluation, and uh, lots of just spending time in my room thinking. But then it was mostly a lot of time for me to like have just social interaction with people, because the whole 2 months of the summer I was kind of a recluse in my room, and you know I was having like a big struggle. But I mean, when I finally was, after the 10 days when they said I was at a state where I could come home, I came home and I realized that things really weren't different. I mean, I was a little bit different, but the things at home didn't really change, and that in order for me to make progress, I have to do something, and I have to um, make the effort. But I guess the biggest lesson I learned in Bradley was, that people are people, and we all have struggles, and we all have feelings, and um, we all have an obstacle that we need to overcome in our lives, and I can't really help it that I'm a sensitive person, but that's how I've always been, and I can't really change that about myself. Um, when I was at Bradley, they gave me coping skills for different types of problems, and I've been trying to apply them to my real life, and I'm just trying to take everything day by day and not overanalyze situations in my life. One of my biggest issues right now is just, you know, um, getting over the fear of having people coming into my life intimately. Um, I'm there's not like I haven't really had a lot of opportunities with that kind of thing with people, so it's just like a strange feeling and it makes me uncomfortable. But I guess I have to learn to get like be more comfortable with people and allow people to see what it's really like to be me. Um, and I need to find something that I'm passionate about, and I need to like try to figure myself out as a person, because at this point I don't really know who I am, and um, I want to feel like what people think about me is true, because what I've heard from people is that, you know, I'm brave and um, I'm an individual, but I don't really feel like that most days. Um, the biggest misconception about me is that I'm uh, this confident person, but you know, I'm insecure about a lot of things, and you know, I don't feel like I live up to what people think I am. But one of my goals of recovery is just looking at myself in the mirror and seeing the reflection and accepting it, and you know, believing in what I see. I have to believe that there's good qualities about myself, and I have to believe that, you know, people actually find me interesting, or that, you know, somebody might find me attractive, because I've never really had thoughts like that about myself. So after I said my goodbyes to um, my acquaintances at Bradley, you know, I walked out the door, and it was a strange feeling of um, being outside after 10 days. Like, it was kind of just like a weird feeling. Um, it was kind of just like it was kind of like being reborn into the whole world. It was strange. But at the same time, I was kind of sad that I was leaving, just because, you know, I got along with these people there, and I always had somebody to talk to. But, you know, Bradley wasn't the real world. People aren't that nice, and um, the the real world can be cruel. But you know, I have to find my way and my path, and in order to survive, and not only survive but thrive, and you know, make the best out of what I have. So that's my story.